This is the Between Extraordinary Part 5. If you're watching this video, we do have a playlist now for this particular series of The Between. It is called The Between Extraordinary, so named because this is a little bit more like The Extraordinary or The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, but maybe not today. We'll see. In any case, it's been a couple weeks since we played. Let's do a little bit of recap. If you want to follow along with the recap on the character keeper and the threat section, that'd be great. You currently have two active threats. They are the Limehouse Lurker and the Shoreditch Slugger. You've made pretty decent progress on both, actually, or a little bit of progress on Shoreditch, but you've seen a lot and done a lot on Shoreditch, so I think that counts for something. The Limehouse Lurker, you are still trying to sort out whether the vampire is young or old. That is a complexity 4, and it unlocks the next question. You have 5 clues to use for that if you wish. On the Shoreditch Slugger, this is the one where we have this bout club thing going on around in secret places around town. And you have a couple of questions here. One is sort of a selfish thing that just lets you tap into the slugger's superhuman strength for yourself. And the other is the actual resolution of the threat. What is the slugger's weakness? You currently have 2 clues on that. You have pretty impressive 4 mastermind clues right now, so that's great. And I think that's pretty much where things stand with the threats and the mastermind. Taking a look at the hunters, we do have a fair few conditions out there in the world. There are some really interesting ones too, which will be interesting to see how they play out, or if you decide to clear them. So let's see. Do you all have any questions about anything before we begin? Okay, then I recommend you take a look at.
Sorry, one question.
Yeah.
The in the Shoreditch Slugger, the Eternal Man move. I'm missing where is that written in here somewhere? Or
I don't think I've told you what it
overlooking?
does. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I can tell you if you're interested.
I
You
am,
command
but
some of the Shoreditch Slugger's strength. When the keeper narrates a hunter's death as the result of a missed roll, you may mark a box below, there's 3 boxes, and say how, through sheer brute strength and force of will, and perhaps the machinations of the occult, you actually survive. You all share this track. So essentially, it's like a 3-mark Janus mask that you all share, that you use the strength of the Shoreditch Slugger to power through whatever just tried to kill you. So that's the deal. It's not bad. Yeah, might be worth a couple of clues. And so it's a great question. If you haven't done so already, take a look at your Dawn questions and make sure you have 2 elective Dawn questions that you're interested in role playing today. And let's kick over to the day phase. I'm going to go ahead and present the new threat. You can follow along on the threat section of the character keeper. Our new threat is called the Demon of Kilburn Abbey. Bartholomew Gastrell, an old friend of Hargrave House and one of the finest surgeons in London, has told you of his newest guest at the mortuary. The well-preserved body of a girl was found at Kilburn Abbey during recent renovation work, walled up in the basement. Shortly after removing the corpse, dark urges have begun to spread inside the monastery. Statues and paintings have been smeared with obscene drawings. Monks were found in sinful embrace. The abbot himself blasphemed God during Mass, foaming at his mouth. According to Gastrell, each of these events was preceded by a sighting of the walled-up girl, wearing pre-century clothes and the most wicked smile. You have 2 questions and opportunities here. They are both different ways of resolving the threat. The first is the least complex, but the most dangerous to resolve. How can the demon be driven from the Abbey? Complexity 6. Resolve the threat by using innocence or piety as a bait, then performing a banishing ritual. And then complexity 8, why was the demon bound to a girl? Resolve the threat by performing a ritual to rebind the demon to the girl's corpse. Thereafter, the hunters have access to another move, demonic insight. Now, I will tell you that we have confirmation that this is, in fact, demonic activity. I'm going to pose the following question to Victoria Balakwa, who's most likely to know the answer to this. A detail in Gastrell's story confirms that it is demonic activity to you. What is it?
There has been, after each incident, uh, a symbol burnt onto the walls, sometimes behind a dresser, sometimes, but somewhere in that room where perhaps we find it behind the altar, a symbol burnt into a surface.
Very good. So, how could the demon be driven from the abbey, or why was the demon bound to this girl? And so we also have an aspect of the Janus mask available here. It's called the Mask of Sacrilege. If someone marks it, each hunter narrates a possible future in which they succumb to a sinful act, thereby endangering their health and or the safety of others. Let's go around the table and find out what everyone's interested in doing today. You can begin investigating the Demon of Kilburn Abbey. You can continue investigating any of the other active threats. You can focus on a dawn question. You can have vulnerable moments with other hunters in order to clear conditions, or just show us any other part of your character you want to show us. I'm going to start with Dominic Constantine.
A question about my bloodthirsty condition. It is tied to my cosmic passage, and it pops up in the dusk based on a roll. Does it clear itself, or do I need to deal with
Let's
that?
take a look. I don't recall offhand, so let's just take a look at it. This came from what now? Your cosmic passage?
Yes.
Roll with presence. 10 plus. Once the beast is resolved, unmark the spot. So it's just a regular condition like any condition. But whenever you resolve the beast threat, you unmark the cosmic passage and can mark it again.
Right.
Yeah. But the condition itself
Okay.
is just a regular condition. It's not permanent. It gets cleared in any way that a condition would get cleared.
Got it. In that case, I think I'd like to see what the Shoreditch Slugger is up to. We had a moment.
You did have a moment. Yeah, it was a moment. Bit of a moment. Where are you going to go look for him? You don't know where he's at.
Sounds like sneaking around the bout club and seeing if I can find where he comes from.
That's interesting. You may have to find out where Bout Club is going to be held, because it changes every night. So that might be step one.
I'm a friend of the club, though.
That's a good point. Oh yeah, that's true. I'll tell you where it is. Okay, sounds good. Jakob, what are you going to do?
Remind me, we can only answer questions at the night phase. Is that correct?
You can answer it whenever you want, but during the dusk phase, I will ask if you want to. I'll remind you, give you space to do it there.
Alrighty. Does anybody? I kind of feel like answering the question on the Limehouse Lurker. Feels like we got enough clues. Is anybody against me doing that or poking at that?
We can certainly begin that process. Maybe you all are having coffee and talking about the Limehouse Lurker so that Jenny Johnson will stop harassing you.
Right. And is that my day move, or can I answer the question and then based on that
answering a question is always kind of just group activity. We'll kind of check the time and see where we're at in terms of other scenes. So
here's my thought: is answer the question and then probably take the next step on the Limehouse Lurker or whatever that is.
Yeah, sounds good. Victoria, what would you like to do today?
I would like to have a conversation with Lady Florence, as my encounter with the Man in the Sun mask has me asking a lot of royalty questions, and I would like some answers. But I also think that Victoria would want to either do a little bit more clue digging on the Limehouse Lurker, maybe going to Rebecca Solomon and seeing if the rabbi has any insight into vampires or general evil in the area.
Yeah, it sounds great. What about you, Lady Florence? Are you okay with the scene with Ms. Balakwa?
Yeah.
And then what about after that?
After that, I think Lady Florence is still like, she is wired from like fighting and bout club, and like there's still like adrenaline coursing through. So I think that she's maybe trying to present herself as if she's not, but she's interested in just like pursuing this mainly because she likes Bout Club.
Do you want to go with Dominic then after that? Or
That probably
because-
makes sense. Like I was thinking, like my initial thought had been if we had made any like friends or connections deep into the night, after the actual fighting, maybe meeting up with them and just sort of like sharing stories of the night before and
I'll give you some things to follow up on here. Some leads.
Okay.
Maybe there's always Brick, the bouncer and lookout. Maybe you know where he hangs out. There is the young man who was trying to fight the slugger, but whose brother was killed. That is Denny Baker. And let's see. There's Jester Yardley, the MC, as well. He's probably with Brick. And then there are just like rando members of the Bout Club. If you just want a name, I'll give you a name and you can go talk to them. So
Dominic, again, you're going to do what?
I'm trying to track down the Shoreditch Slugger
Himself. Okay.
Yep.
Well, what if, because I think that the underlying tension between Dominic and Lady Florence is interesting and might be worth kind of pursuing. So what if we sort of like go the same direction and are kind of like, yeah, like magnets that can't quite like glom together, but will be in the vicinity?
let's go ahead and start with answering a question, since that's kind of group activity, and then we'll kind of get these other scenes rolling. So the question is for the Limehouse Lurker, is the vampire actually young, or is it an old vampire in the body of a young person? And the complexity is 4. You have 5 clues currently. I'll review them for you. When the body behind the pub was found, there was a bunch of milk sweets found tossed to the side or scattered. A wooden toy Viking ship, very intricate, very old, fell out of the pocket of one of the young orphans from the workhouse. There's a chalk drawing of a Roman phalanx near where the Man in the Sun Mask hangs out, and the Man in the Sun Mask believes that it's something to do with the lurker. We have this sort of like weird fixation on things that come in 3s, with the 3rd item always missing. And then there was a Bible with the pages about Noah and the Ark torn out. So who has a thought on whether the vampire is young or old?
Ben, if I remember it, you were leaning towards following the plot line for it being young.
It was just a thought. I'm totally open to wherever our theories take us.
All right. I'm fine with that. My theory, I kind of want to like, I don't know, imagine a conversation that you had with Julius, perhaps as well. But this idea that this is a young vampire, but the progeny of a rather old vampire who's been around long enough to have described a Roman phalanx. And then this young vampire draws it to have described a childhood and for this progenitor to describe its own childhood in whatever Scandinavia and
Julius.
Viking ship.
I'll note that Julius claims to have been alive during the time of Hadrian, so there's a small chance that maybe this is that if Julius is the progenitor of this kid. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Julius just forgot, and so has taken no like concern about the Limehouse Lurker. So it's not it's an interesting angle. I think that explains probably the phalanx. Maybe if there is an older vampire in the mix, Julius or otherwise, maybe they gave the gift of the Viking toy ship to the kid as a way of placating him. I don't know. But
and my thought on the 3rd item is missing. Think about the Roman numeral 3, these 3 lines. Typically in a reproductive cycle, you've got 2 parents giving birth to a human child. But in this case, only 1 parent has given birth to a vampiric child, and therefore, like, strike the number 3 from the record. It doesn't exist.
Or
I kind of love that.
kind of three parents give birth to a vampire child, if you think about it, the two birth parents and then the vampire. And maybe the child resents it and thus strikes out the third.
Even better. Yeah.
And for the milk sweets, maybe if it is young and a child, maybe he wanted that candy, killed the person, then tried to eat the candy and realized can't, and just left it behind.
Oh, that's pretty good too. Lady Florence or Victoria, do you have any thoughts you want to add?
I mean, the only way in my mind within this context of the answer to add the pages of Noah and the ark being ripped out of a Bible that is found is that this kid is like obviously been raised in the church and is having a lot of feelings and therefore trying to destroy the gods that he knew before because now he is vampire. Or
Why that
she,
specific
for that matter.
story though?
I don't
I think
have it.
that's yeah.
Who
I think
put
that's
the vampires
interesting-
on the ark? Like if you need two of everything on the ark, who put two vampires on the ark? That doesn't, you know.
Well, it could tie it to the 2 and 3 parents thing, that like there's 2 animals because that's the appropriate parentage, or maybe like Noah would
Oh, I
be
kind of like that.
preferred
Yeah,
parent
the kid's
in a
weirdly
way,
obsessed
and
with
so-
parentage. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. Yeah, I'm into that. Do we
Yeah,
want
the
to
2 by
also
2
use?
would be infuriating. That's very cool.
Yeah, do we also want to do the wooden toy Viking ship being a gift, or do you want to hold that clue?
I feel like
Remind
we
me
can
if we
hold that.
these clues used in answering the question, they are gone from answering the next level,
I mean,
right?
they're context for your theory, but they can't be used mechanically. They have no value for answering a question. Yeah.
So
Well,
we're at an
with 4
even
clues,
roll
we're at a
right
flat
now,
roll.
right?
Yeah. The wooden toy Viking ship would put it up at +1.
Ooh.
I feel like we use it not just for the mechanical purposes, but it really does fit very well
I think it makes
with the theory
sense.
we're
Yeah, it
working
really
with.
does. Yeah. That would be a +1. Brian, you kind of took point on this theory, so why don't you go ahead and roll? If there's no objections, go ahead and roll +1.
All right. 9.
9. Now, that is correct. And there's no need to bump it because on these like yes or no questions, a 9 is just as good as a 10, to be honest. So you are correct. It is a young vampire that will unlock the next question, which is, if it's young, what was the child's home life like before they returned? It's a complexity 4. And answering that question allows you to resolve the threat by luring the vampire into a scene reminiscent of its home life and then destroying it or making arrangements for it to safely feed on a regular basis. But basically getting it to you is the key. And that looks good. You need to find a few more clues before you can start cracking at that one, at least 2. Let's get scenes going now. Why don't we go ahead and start with Victoria and Lady Florence? Victoria, you called for the scene, so what's happening? And is there a vice in play?
I think I'm sitting in the parlor, shuffling and dealing out my cards, trying to explore some of the feelings that arose last night as I was quite taken aback by the man I met in an opium den turning out to be in residence at Buckingham Palace. And I'm watching Lady Florence just pace, like in one room, out the other, in one, in the other. And I just, Lady Florence, would you sit for a moment? I don't think you need any more coffee.
There's like a urn or something that's made out of stone. I don't even know if it breaks, but like I'm just pacing and like I just like very quickly like jab it. And and put a crack in it or knock it over, however we think that that plays out, if it's mounted or not. And I sort of like look over at Victoria and says, "Oh, sorry, you broke my concentration there."
Well, I'll be reminded not to do that too often, as I would not want to be that Roz. I could use a little advice. I'm afraid I don't know quite what I've gotten myself into with this man in the sun mask. I went to Buckingham Palace last night.
The Buckingham Palace.
I was ushered in through a back door. I ate a sumptuous meal while he sat at the other end and watched in adoration. I'm afraid I'm over my head and out of my depth.
And why again do you believe this was Buckingham Palace?
Because there was a coach that drove me to, but I'm quite sane. I know that occasionally the dark forces work through me, but I can identify Buckingham Palace by sight.
And I think like I do the sort of like I don't know what it would be in Buckingham Palace, but like the sort of like do your tattoos match type of thing, where I sort of like ask some like obscure detail from whatever room that she's describing, and they match up. And so then I'm like, oh, interesting. And then I start like prodding at the idea of the sun mask itself.
Well, I mean, he's quite fascinated by me. I don't know how I feel. I just was chatting up someone while I was looking for clues to find this terrible vampire. But at this point, I don't know what to do. Does it sound familiar? This gentleman, someone in this station, or do you have any advice that I could?
Do you find yourself at all fascinated by him? It sounds like you do, given that you're coming to me with these questions.
I had a very fitful night's sleep, to be honest, and I just don't know how far I want to travel down this path without being better informed. I was quite taken aback. I was not prepared for his station at all, and since you being so connected to Her Majesty and her kingdom, I thought maybe you could give me some advice. How do I go about this?
You know, there is that old story of Icarus and his boldness of flying towards the sun. And in my travels, I have learned, for what it may be worth, that that's all a lie. Icarus got to the sun, enjoyed himself fully, and became the moon for what it is worth. And that seems an admirable goal. If I was in your situation, I would pursue this. I would follow the great heroes of old, and draw closer to the sun.
There we have it. Advice given.
Victoria just starts pulling more cards.
Oh, very good, very good. I don't know if that was a vulnerable move because I don't remember anyone doing their vice, but unless the only way I would maybe interpret it liberally is to say, Victoria, just because you are talking about a potential romantic and sexual escapade with a strange entity, it might satisfy, but I'll let you decide.
I was inferring that last night I didn't get a lick of sleep.
Right. Yeah, that's why. That's
kind of obsessive.
Yeah, that's
reason.
why. I think if you want to take it, you can. If we take a look at conditions, I mean, do you want to say that you feel better about the Man in the Sun mask, therefore you would unmark that, or?
I still might be drawn to him and him to me, but I would like to clear the condition.
You can clear the condition.
That I am delightful.
Lady Florence, I don't think you're going to get to clear black eye here, but Victoria, you do get to
black eye.
Yeah, you get to invite Lady Florence to ask you a question about your past or stumble on a clue. Think about that. Or actually, let us know now if it's going to be a question.
Let's do a question.
All right. Think on your question, Lady Florence. And I'm going to cut over to Dominic and or Jakob. Jakob, what are you doing right now? Now that the question is answered.
Yeah, right. I think back to Jenny Johnston, let her know she can dispose of the corpses and,
Good.
Look around Limehouse for the, I don't know, orphanages that have the least amount of direct sunlight. Maybe I deliberately go there kind of close to dusk in the hopes that I can either bait out Julius, right? Julius or the lurker.
Well, so the thing is,
itself
we actually know where Julius hangs out in Limehouse, right? If he went back to
we
his
do?
nest, Dominic, I mean, I'm pretty sure someone wandered into his nest before. Am I making that up, or is that another campaign?
I think that's another campaign.
Might be another
It
campaign. In any
is.
case, you can go search for him in Limehouse, so if you want, or you just generally search around Limehouse if you want. I think that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, poke around. Like, I think talk to Jenny Johnson if she's still got those corpses in the basement.
Yeah,
Time
we'll
to get rid of them. We've solved what we need
I
to
like that a
solve.
lot.
and
Yeah,
then-
we'll pick up with that. So Jenny Johnston will meet you at the Opium Den. I'm curious how you like when you go into the Opium Den. What's that like? You seem like a real fish out of water in a place like this.
Definitely, it is too dark and too cramped and too smoky, and people are lazing about when they should be out tending the fields and herding sheep, or at least doing something for society.
Jenny Johnston will
But
come and meet-
I'm also trying to not be judgmental. Like, I don't want to show that on my face. I'm trying to.
right. Jenny Johnston will come meet you at the door. She's wearing her signature dark taffeta gown, and she comes up to you and she says, "Mr. Walsh, I didn't know you partook in the poppy."
I hold a little kerchief up to my nose, and I was like, Miss Johnson, it's been so kind of you to bring this matter to Hargrave's attention. I think that the time has come to give those bodies a proper burial, possibly with an extra step if one follows local lore on vampires. Are they still where you left them in the basement?
Unfortunately, we have already tipped them into the Thames. I hope that satisfies the requirements of a proper burial under this circumstance.
Well, not how we do it back in Wales, but I understand it has its needs. It's a dense urban area with little real estate. Wouldn't want my asthmas lingering about.
So, Mr. Walsh, what is Hargrave House's opinion on this matter? Are we going to have more bodies turning up soon? Or do you think we're getting closer to the culprit?
Well, both. We're concerned about the possibility of more bodies, and we are getting closer to the culprit. Definitely looking for a culprit of both short stature and short age.
Go ahead and make the information move here with her.
All right.
You can do
Any
it with
particular
presence and presence and I do want you to take a disadvantage for London is very different than Wales, just because you're in sort of a very fish out of water situation here.
Actually, disadvantage didn't hurt me in that one. So I'm at a 6 is what I'm at. Still not good.
It's not good. Yeah, let's say.
but in terms of disadvantage, I rolled a 7 and then I rolled another 5, and so I'm like, whatever. But anyway, so it's a 6.
Here's what's going to happen.
To check a mask to bump that to a success.
Well, here's what's going to happen. Let me tell you what's going to happen. You might want to keep it. I don't know. But basically what's going to happen is she is going to suddenly be of the opinion that it would be helpful to have no witnesses to the fact that she surreptitiously hid bodies in her basement for weeks and did not tell Scotland Yard. And so she is going to drug you, and you are going to end up in the basement. Not dead, but unconscious. If you're okay with that, let it stand. Otherwise, you can put on a Janus mask.
I kind of think that I innocently did not tell anybody where I was going this morning, and so probably best that I put on a Janus mask and not end up unconscious in the basement.
Very good. In that case, it bumps up your result to a 7, and I'll give you a clue in a bit. Let's go over to Dominic. You said you were going to head out to. Well, let me tell you where the Bout Club is, and then you can decide when and how you want to leave for it, because the location of Bout Club does change. And this next one is going to be in a newly dug tube tunnel. At this time in London, they are digging the subway tunnels, right? And so that is construction that's always going on around town. And frequently the tunnels are left empty while they kind of work on a different section of it or whatever. And so the next Bout Club is going to be in this one particular tube tunnel on the East End. And so that is that's where it's going to be. You can certainly go ahead and try to find out information about where the slugger might be, or if you wait until late enough in the day, you can just go when everyone's gathering, maybe a little early. Bout Club is pretty late at night, but they might get together to like go out for drinks or something before they head over to Bout Club. So
I think Dom is going to want to meet up with the slugger in a more private setting if possible. So I think he'll go early and see if any of the organizers are there.
Sounds good. Let's wrap up. We'll come back to that in a moment. Lady Florence, what is your question for Victoria Belacqua?
So I think it's Victoria, you've talked a bit about your aunts in the past, and you always have this strange relationship with characters of power. Is there something about one of your aunts that maybe you could lean on in this particular situation and understanding how this relationship might work? I guess what I'm kind of like poking at is like, is there a particular aunt that like had some type of relationship with like, or was like more powerful in some way than the others, and in what way was that? Does that make sense?
Vaguely. I think I can get there. Well, Lady Florence, I think I've mentioned my aunts just once. How keen of you to remember. I don't think that there is no advice that I would take from them to heart. So unfortunately, it's why I come to you in looking for perhaps a better understanding of the royalty aspect of it. But when it comes to managing relationships between willing adults, I need no guidance in that area.
Very good. Do you feel like your question has been sufficiently answered, Lady Florence?
Yeah.
Good. Lady Florence, do you want to bop over to the tube tunnel with Dominic then before he takes off?
Yeah, so I'm kind of like rushing out the door as my conversation with Victoria ends, and following Dominic, who probably is already like well out the door and down the street.
Yeah. Victoria, what are you going to do? What are you going to do now that your vulnerable scene is over?
I think that I might be compelled to do a little research on this demon, so to speak. And I would go to Rebecca in that regard of, oh goodness,
Yeah,
this seems like a deep evil that she might provide some guidance on.
This is her jam, to be sure. Good. Sounds good. All right, then. Dominic and Lady Florence heading over to the tube tunnel. I mean, there's like essentially like a kind of like a large like construction area that's sort of cordoned off on the surface, but you can kind of hop the little fence and go down some makeshift stairs to get to where this portion of the tunnel has been dug. It's no trouble to just wait till no one's looking to like jump down there and go down. I think you will find Jester and Brick. They are hanging out per usual, and kind of like just sort of hanging out. They're kind of drinking and pretending to get ready for bout club, but there's really nothing to get ready. I mean, there's no ring or anything. People just stand around in a circle. But this is their job. This is their job. This is what they do. And I think Jester will see the two of you coming and say, couldn't get enough of this place, eh?
Never. And I think he'll turn, seeing Jester's eye over his shoulder, he'll turn and kind of notice Lady Florence and give her a bit of a scowl.
Just kind of shrug in return.
Jester says, your fight with the Vice Admiral was very interesting, Lady Florence, very interesting indeed. He didn't put up much of a fight, in fact. He just sort of stood there and took it.
I think he knew what was coming and knew it'd be better to just take it than to prolong the pain.
That must have been it.
And why wouldn't it be, Dominic?
Oh, no reason at all, your ladyship.
Well, folks, how can we help you here today? Brick and I were enjoying a little bit of afternoon tea before you graced us with your presence, and Brick really does not like being interrupted when it comes to his afternoon tea.
Well, I am sorry about that, Brick. I'm looking for a friend I made last night.
Brick goes, he's looking for the slugger, no doubt.
Subtlety is my specialty.
Jester
And
says,
he,
Jester says, I might know where he's at, but I'm not sure. Well, what are you going to do for me if I tell you where he is?
don't I always give you a good show, Jester? Liven up the place, make things interesting.
So you're agreeing to a special exhibition match tonight.
If that's what it takes.
We have a fine bout lined up for tonight, a special event meant to demonstrate one's total mastery of themselves, of their mind, their body, a full expression of masculinity. Perhaps you'd like
and
to...
what's the twist?
The twist? Well, and then you'll hear down in the tunnel, you'll hear something like growl down in the darkness of the tunnel.
Dom's eyes will kind of widen and he'll kind of look in that direction and say, so we're talking lion, bear, alligator?
And Brick and Jester just look at each other, and Jester says, I have a feeling you'll handle whatever we throw at you, Mr. Constantine.
I expect I will.
I'll even let you bring in one hand-to-hand weapon.
Oh, well, with generosity like that, I understand now why you're in charge of this place.
Indeed, indeed. So if we have a deal, I'm happy to tell you where you can usually find the slugger this time of day.
We have a deal.
There's a pub on the East End called the Crown and Anchor. The slugger has a room in the back of that pub where he holds forth from time to time.
I appreciate the information, though I am surprised you didn't save this special bout for him.
It cost us a lot of money to get that lion or bear or alligator, and I don't want to take a chance of losing it. The slugger, he's unbeatable, but you, well, that would be a show.
I am always charmed by your confidence in my abilities.
Brick says, and if you can't find the slugger at the Crown and Anchor, he's been hanging out with that admiral quite a lot lately.
Son of a bitch.
Dom will turn to Lady Florence and go, well, that is interesting.
Indeed.
It is.
Jakob, Jenny Johnston, she says, I have heard rumors that the creature that is doing this is a child. Does that conform to Hargrave House's theory about the case?
A child in many ways, but not so innocent any longer.
Hmm. Do you have any children, Mr. Walsh?
No. None at all.
I suppose you're too young for that. Oh, that's all right. You'll find a woman to love you someday, and I'm sure she will bear you many, many children.
We shall see.
We shall see. I myself never really took to them. I came here to make a life for myself. People turn their noses up at East London, but all I see is opportunity. Never had children, never wanted them. This place is my child, and I'm protective of it as a mother to a child. I have to tell you, my patrons have been coming in as of late, telling me about a child at night, excoriating them, castigating them for their excesses. If this child and your creature are one and the same, it seems to be something of a moral prig.
There are those who adopt for benevolent means and take young waifs in.
Well,
someone sheltering this child, perhaps?
I could not say, but I do think it's interesting that the victims were a male prostitute, a teacher known for beating children. That's a new detail, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
And a philandering Chinese sailor. I wonder if there is a moralistic dimension to the whole thing.
Perhaps, yeah. It seems almost as though they're trying to almost make a better world, take away the things they see as not conducive to, I don't know, a happy childhood, if you will.
Perhaps. Can I interest you in anything before you go, Mr. Walsh?
Oh, no. I just this morning, in fact, received a letter from my parents that warned me to beware of I don't know, the various temptations that London has to offer. So no, thank you. I very much appreciate your help and your time.
Seems both you and this so-called lurker have a little bit in common with each other.
Nothing of the sort. And I kind of rub the injury from Julius.
Indeed. Meanwhile, we'll do one quick scene with Victoria Belacqua, and then we will probably take our first break. Victoria, remind me where you're headed.
I'm going to meet up with Rebecca and
That's
see
right.
if she has any insight
That's right,
to
that's
this so-called demon.
Rabbi Solomon. Well, it's really interesting because when you arrive, she's actually taking a meeting with Bartholomew Gastrell, the surgeon who works at the mortuary. He had the same idea, it would seem. He is a friend of Hargrave House, and she is a former member of Hargrave House, so this all makes sense, right? And so you go into the synagogue, and I think they're just coming out of her office. And she says, Ms. Balakwa, I am going to guess that you are here on the same matter that Dr. Gastrell is here on. And Dr. Gastrell, who is a very well-kept man, fine clothing, a very stately mustache. He's a friend of the house, and he says, well, yes, I actually was over just earlier today explaining to Hargrave House, to Ms. Balakwa and her colleagues that, we're all in the know here, all three of us.
Well, you know me, I do like to predict these sorts of things. I fancy meeting you here, Dr. Gastrell.
Well, how are things going? I mean, have you decided on a particular line of inquiry with regards to Kilburn Abbey?
Well, it seems like you and I had the exact same thought, that we should speak to an expert.
Go ahead and make the information move here, see what Rebecca gives up, if anything.
Woof. That is a 4. These dice
Rebecca.
are so old. Mm-hmm.
Rebecca no longer has her ring, if I remember correctly. I think
That is
Jakob has it.
Yeah.
And that is a problem right now. She's had kind of like a funny flushed look on her face the whole time that you've been chatting with the three of you have been chatting. And she like suddenly seizes up and arches her back and throws her head back. And her mouth opens up wide, and a snake crawls out of her throat and is slithering down her throat. Let's take a 5-minute break. Okay. Victoria, there's a snake crawling out of Rabbi Solomon's throat, and Rabbi Solomon is in some sort of catatonic state while this is happening. Something's clearly holding her in place. Yeah. You can mark the Janus mask to avoid this, or you can try to deal with this as it is. What do you do?
I would like to mark a mask, please.
Okay, very good. We'll come back to this. Dominic and Lady Florence, are you going to head over to the Crown and Anchor?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to set up a vulnerable move here, though,
Okay.
where we are.
Okay.
And I think I start talking to Jester and trying to like lay down. Well, I think it starts with like, how about a second exhibition fight? But it
He
quickly
says, well,
and Dominic.
Oh yeah, good. I have a response to that, but yeah.
Okay. I was gonna say, and I feel like Dominic would just like go start like just scouting the location and that type of thing because he wants nothing to do with Lady Florence's ego here. Presumably.
He will say,
Yep.
Jester will say, he will say, Lady Florence, no offense, but the novelty of a woman fighting at Bout Club is already well satisfied. I'm not sure that there's anything else for you to bring to Bout Club.
Well, how about I bring some funds? And
Oh.
then essentially, like, I think she just like starts working with Jester on like placing like bets on various fights that have happened.
Okay.
And so anyway, I feel like at some point, like this Dominic like wanders back and Lady Florence sort of like looks over at him and says, Dominic, I caught a weird reaction when our friend here mentioned the Slugger and Admiral Flag together. You aren't jealous by any chance, are you?
Where's this conversation taking place? Just so I'm clear.
Just like in the tube.
Oh, okay. You're just kind
Like,
of hanging
yeah.
out. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what is it you think I might be jealous of?
Oh, not entirely sure. know there's been some tension between us in the past. I I wouldn't have asked you to do that thing if it wouldn't benefit the queen, you know.
Oh, well, when the queen calls, we jump. Off of any building or cliff.
This is as
Or
far as I
mountain.
got in my head. uh a- and I hope that you're not reluctant to talk to me about your affairs because of that.
No, Lady Florence, not because of that. Shall we?
As long as we're on the same level, I think everything's okay here.
On the same level. Interesting turn of phrase.
I
Your
suppose.
ladyship. Well, if you'll excuse me, I have an appointment to keep.
Lady
Um,
Florence, were you trying to trigger your vice by setting up the betting apparatus at Bow Club?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Do you want to invite Dominic to ask you a question about your past, or do you want to stumble on a clue?
I would like to, I think, stumble upon a clue here.
You get to define it, so just think about what it is. And we'll go over to Jakob. Jakob, what are you going to do after you're done at Jenny Johnston's?
I feel like I need a moment to myself to sit and think. So I'm going to find some kind of tavern here that would serve gin. And it's not that I necessarily know that gin is the one thing that doesn't completely drain me, but I've got a taste for gin. And I feel like I want to sit and sip a little gin and think to myself, probably exposing myself to danger by so doing.
Well, the Dog and Whistle's nearby, of course, and it's also helpfully one of the places where one of the victims was found.
If they serve gin, let's go there.
Well, we'll see. I don't know that Jakob would necessarily know who serves what.
Right.
And you will see Rory Horsford at the bar. You will see the old woman wrapped in her blanket in the corner complaining about the cold. This is, of course, a sort of sailor's bar, as we've established. There is a painting of a dog with no whistle in sight. And Rory will give you a look and he'll say, lots of unusual types wandering through here lately. You don't, you seem like you might be lost, sir.
Pensive, lost in thoughts.
Well, can I pour you a pint of our finest?
A pint of gin sounds rather a lot, but whatever gin you have would be delicious.
Gin? What? What do you think this is? Is this a ladies' salon? Are you here to watch the races? And I think the old lady kind of chuckles at the idea that you want gin. He says, I may have something in my personal stash for you, sir. And he'll kind of go to the back and he'll set down a glass of alcohol.
I'll take a little sip and pull out the letter from my parents that I was reading this morning.
When you take a sip, you feel it tearing through your body the moment you sip it. I don't think he knows how important that it had to be gin, and he has inadvertently poisoned you. You are going to have to resist it in some way. How are you going to do that?
Resist it in some way. Remind me, the items in our personal quarters, do they give advantage on a dice roll?
if you
Really
can
use them much.
narrate it into the die roll. Yeah. I mean, this is going to be a day move. Just tell me what are your phrase going to happen if you fail to resist the poison.
I will definitely wind up drained and possibly still wind up somehow in the basement of Jenny's.
Yeah, that's good. Let me read your little weakness thing here.
Drained with alcohol, or take the condition drain with any alcohol other than gin.
Let's see here. That's one of your moves, right?
I don't think it's a move. I think it's just my
Vulnerability.
I guess
You are
you call it
highly
a move,
vulnerable
I
to a
guess.
particular element. Take the condition drained if you come into physical contact with the element. Okay. So you just take the condition drained. You don't have to roll anything. Yeah. So what does this look like? Like, what's it doing to you?
Like in the sense that people get inebriated and their speech gets slurred. I more like words just sort of don't show up on time. It's sort of like a delay, like a real long like radio signal didn't reach Mars and come back in time. So super long delay, somnambulistic in a way, kind of sleepy faced.
And the old woman whose name, I need to remind myself what her name is, Elma Thorpe. Elma kind of laughs when she sees you staggering and stumbling about. There's someone who can't hold his liquor. And Rory says, come back here, friend, or come take a seat, please. And he'll kind of try to guide you to a chair.
I'll say my parents warned me about. My parents, they warned me about places,
friend,
places like this. That's what they warned.
I think you would be better suited for an
me.
establishment doing a high tea than a place like this. And Elma comes over as well, and they're both like quite concerned about you. And Elma says something. You hear Elma mutter, like, I think you should just get him out of here, Rory. This can't be good. And there's a bit of consternation about what to do with you. Victoria, you have marked the Janus mask, and so there's no snake coming out of Rabbi Solomon. Rabbi Solomon instead says, well, I actually don't have any particular information about what's going on at Kilburn Abbey. I've heard rumblings of some strange things going on, but I think the two of you have more information than I have. I will say this, though, now that you're here, Ms. Balakwa, I have something that might be of use to you. Well, let's just say I had something of an inkling that this would be handy. And she pulls out of her pocket a little journal with quite detailed instructions for how to bind a demon. Very particular ritual instructions for how to do it. You can add this to your personal quarters. It is a clue as well, but it's not a clue that is going to help get to the wheres and whys. It might end up helping with the ultimate solution to the problem. Or it might help in that regard, but it's not going to help you it provides no context for the answer, right?
Victoria will blink away visions of snakes in her eyes and take the journal from Rebecca, brushing her fingers against hers.
She says, and then she kind of leans in close to you and she says, where is my ring, Victoria?
Where is your ring, Rebecca? You didn't you've had that for... Where is your ring? I don't think I know that Jacob or Jakob.
Yeah, out of character, how did you get it,
Christmas.
Jacob or Jakob? How did you get hold of it? I can't remember.
I think it was a Christmas gift. It was just arrived.
It was when we solved the mystery.
Oh, she sent it to you, but Jakob intercepted it. That's what it was. She sent
Right.
it to you as a gift, and she thinks you have it.
Okay, okay. So then I would say, don't you have it?
No, I sent it to you on. It was delivered to Hargrave House on Christmas Eve.
I did not receive it.
Someone at Hargrave House must have received it.
And they've said nothing about it to me.
It's not the sort of thing that can get accidentally left on the doorstep or in the foyer and not go noticed.
Well, no, of course not. It radiates a presence.
Someone has it. Either Mr. Constantine or Lady Florence. I don't think she knows about
That's
Jakob.
very-
I don't think she.
No. That's very distressing.
You know,
And I hold her hand a little. I'll read some cards and see if I can't define.
she takes your hand a little more and she kind of pulls you away from Dr. Gastrell.
Mm.
She says, Victoria, I have reservations about Mr. Constantine and Hargrave House. The Constantines have been in the business that Hargrave House has been in for many, many more years. I wonder where his loyalties actually lie. My ring would be an incredible boon or gift to the Constantine family.
Why on earth did you send it to me via the post?
Because I didn't have the heart to tell you that I'm getting out of this. I want to just tend to my flock. I have no more interest in doing this dark work. I left Hargrave House for that reason. And I didn't want to see your expression. I feel like you and I have bonded quite a bit on these matters. And I thought the ring would be best left to you. It was not meant to lead to a conversation like this.
Well, a mislaid parting gift is the worst sort of omen. I understand you wish to leave this life behind, and in some ways that does mean that you leave behind me as well.
And, well, I don't know, Ms. Belacqua. Truth be told, you have, and she looks over your shoulder in that way that some people look over your shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
Says, ours was never an exclusive relationship, if you know what I mean.
That was out of character. No, of course not, but I'm so very fond of our evenings. Getting warm together on these winter nights.
Dr. Gastrell gives
Mm.
Dr. Gastrell, who cannot overhear this, but is just waiting, standing there, he gives a sort of like impatient, like,
Yes, Doctor.
Rabbi Solomon
Just a moment.
says, perhaps that you should get on with it, Victoria. But do look into my ring. That is not the sort of thing that you want, just roaming around with no one knowing where it is.
Of course, of course. I just was so foolish to send it. I will look into it.
Mm-hmm.
Doctor, and just kind of go back to
Yeah, indeed. Let's check in with Dominic and Lady Florence. Lady Florence, what'd you stumble on clue-wise?
Yeah, so I think I leaned over to Jester and said, Dominic's very jealous. You might want to adjust the morning line on that particular fight. And as I'm peeking at his fight sheet, I see the Sluggers matchup, and penciled in parentheses underneath it is Absorption Night. under his name. Absorption Night. You're on mute, Jason. If you are.
Sorry, I was trying to like catch that. Just type that into the clues.
Yep. I
Okay.
will.
That's good. Well, so Dominic, what are you doing now?
Dominic's going to be wanting to head over to the Crown and Archer
Anchor, yeah.
or Anchor. Yeah.
Lady Florence, what about you?
I might do the same thing and just kind of like linger from a distance and follow Dom on his way.
Interesting stalker action going on. Dominic, the Crown and Anchor is even already this late in the afternoon, like, or I should say, even now when it's in the afternoon and not in the evening, it's filled with rowdy patrons. There is a gray haze of pipe smoke, and there are not many women. The only women you see are either barmaids or sex workers, and you get the impression that the patrons almost entirely, or I would say indeed uniformly, men prefer it that way. Let's paint the scene, everyone. What scenes of brotherly bonding are playing out among the patrons that could only
I have
happen?
my ear. I have.
Wait, what? What's going on? Oh, I thought I heard Sarah say something.
Yeah, I missed the last fragment of that. Brotherly bonding for what?
Oh, yeah, sorry. What scenes of brotherly bonding are playing out among the patrons that could only happen over a pint or 5 of beer?
I think we see men carousing and roughhousing in even the seats, preparing like or standing around and bumping elbows and then shoving someone's head into a barrel. And it seems to be this kind of hazing that only seems to happen outside of polite eyes.
You know, that thing where, I buy a round and then the next round is on you sort of thing. There's just on the wall, what to an outsider would be an esoteric display of just like pegs and odd things hanging off those pegs. But to those who habituate this place, they're like, oh, the rabbit's foot means that, Mike owes Ben a beer, and the keychain over there, like that means the next round is on, and it just goes down the line, like all these weird little emblems hanging on the wall that are just who owes the next round.
I think in some of the groups, there are occasionally just men who have disrobed in that kind of straight drunk bro kind of thing. Just the occasional nude man partying.
They believe they're being careful about it, but they're literally throwing darts at each other.
Very good. Dominic, this sounds like the kind of place you might actually frequent. I don't know. What do you think?
Normally, yeah, you'd be having a lot of fun making some of these ostensibly very heterosexual men have questions.
Indeed.
But he's on a mission.
Finding the slugger is no trouble at all. He's in his back room. He actually is just kind of drinking by himself. And he sits in the back room, which has like a kind of glass partition, and it's slightly elevated as well, and he's quite big, and so he's just sitting in his little booth area, almost like looming out and looking at everyone, at all the rowdiness going on, and he's drinking water.
I think Dom will kind of mount the stairs up and kind of lean against the door and say, would have expected you would be into something harder than that.
And he smiles, and the sort of dim light in this back room kind of catches on his tattoos in an interesting way. Maybe it's just a trick of the light, or maybe there's something else going on. I don't know. But it seems like the tattoos are almost alive, like they're moving across his musculature. He says, I don't like to befoul the temple before people come to pray at it.
An admirable philosophy, and I think he'll nod toward one of the seats and say, "May I join you, or is the temple full?"
You certainly can join me, please. Have a seat, Mr. Constantine.
I needn't introduce myself then, but I never did catch your name.
No, you didn't catch my name, but you did catch my right hook quite a few times last night. Sorry about that.
No, you aren't.
No, I'm not. Ah, I
And-
see you brought your friend with you. A fine lady. And here you'll see out the glass, Lady Florence is. I don't know if you've gone in yet, Lady Florence, but even if you're just hanging out outside, you'll be visible.
I think I came in and said, "Oh dear," and left, and I'm just lingering outside.
Indeed.
Friend is certainly one way of putting it. She is not as canny as she believes.
I have something of a connection to her, though she doesn't know it. A burgeoning friendship of my own, in fact. The Admiral, the one that she gave a beating to at last bout club, he has something of an obsession with her, I'd say.
Yes, I would agree. He is a neighbor and a dear friend of our little found family.
You're his neighbor?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes. Well, she is. I live in the same domicile.
I have an invitation to the Admiral's house tomorrow night, in fact. Maybe.
Dress like a sailor, it would tickle him.
Yes, he does have a particular motif he likes to work in, doesn't he?
Very much so. The what was it? Manticore, Chimera, one of those Greek things. Big fan.
Maybe when I'm done with whatever business he and I have together tomorrow night, I'll stop by your domicile and, well, maybe we can go for round 2.
I suspect I would enjoy that very much.
Are you going to be at Bout Club tonight?
I am.
They have a bear, if you can believe it.
Oh, I thought that might be the case. That will be my sparring partner.
Well, I was going to do it, but Jester refused. He didn't want me killing his poor bear with one blow.
And yet he thinks me such little a threat. I look forward to surprising him.
What are you doing right now, Lady Florence?
I think I'm as patrons leave, I'm probably eyeing over and just trying to get a feeling of I can probably tell when there's sexual tension between Dom and someone he's talking to. And so like I'm peering through the window every once in a while and just trying to get a better vibe of like where these two are at. But I think as patrons leave, I'm also like eyeing them for anyone that I would have recognized from last night. Maybe there's some bout club regulars that are exiting here.
Yeah, I think that's
might like
great.
to go and approach one of them.
Yeah, make the information move with reason.
Mhm. It's an 8 on the table, and then reason is +1, so it's a 9.
That's great. I think I'm going to take over the fiction just a little bit here. I think you find yourself in the vicinity of the Crown and Anchor, and maybe even, you know, maybe you follow somebody who looks familiar down a side alley, somebody from Bout Club, say, and they go to what appears to be like a there's like a cellar door behind the building, you know, and they pop it open and they just go right down in. And when you try to follow, you physically cannot put your foot on the stairs to go down into the cellar. There's something holding you off. That's your clue. Why you? Well, you can have whatever theories you want, but it may have something to do with your gender, it may have something to do with who you are. There might be, it's clearly some sort of magical ward. And I owe you a complication. Complication is the slugger knows you're back there. He can't see you, but he knows it. And he looks at Dominic and says, your lady friend is trying to poke around in places she doesn't belong.
That is her whole thing, my friend.
And he says, if she pokes too much, well, something might poke back. You should tell her that.
I'm afraid we're never that lucky, but I will pass that along. Thank you.
Very good. Jakob, what's going on right now? You're like intensely inebriated.
I'm
what are you doing?
caressing a ring on my finger and talking gently to the ring in slow, halted passages about the letter I received from my parents this morning. Bartender Rory has pulled me aside, I think. Yes.
They just have you sitting in a chair, like
Sitting in a chair. All right.
in the bar. It's pretty empty otherwise.
All right. At the moment, I'm kind of almost talking to the ring, saying, I know that Davith and Rhiannon, that's the name of my parents, Davith and Rhiannon are wanting me to come back to Wales, but it feels like there's more to do here, that somehow London needs my childlike innocence. This vile city is so corrupt. It needs someone young, fresh, strong to. I'm not. I would in speech like be gapping this a lot for my condition, but I don't want to make your recording be annoying. Like it needs someone young and strong to guide it to a better future. I'm still rubbing the little ring of Rabbi Solomon.
The ring speaks back to you. It says in a quiet whisper, What are you?
Just a shepherd turned solicitor from Jan Pedregach. That's all I am, but this city needs someone.
Where have you come from?
Jan Pedregach.
I can help you.
I kind of look around for a moment. How?
Come to Kilburn Abbey.
Go to Kilburn Abbey. It's not the trail I was pursuing, but I guess I can diverge for an evening.
Splendid. We have much to discuss.
Rory, check, please.
Indeed. Let's check in one last time with Victoria, and we'll call it a day phase. Victoria, what are you going to do once you're done with Rabbi Rebecca?
I would like to perform a ritual so I can understand a little. Like I'll head back to Hargrave House. So, oh, I've forgotten the dancer's name that is now living with us as well.
Christian.
Christian, yes.
Mhm.
I'll just like do a passing wave to Christian as he's stretching in one of the other rooms, and
He's really settling in, by the way. He's eating a lot of the
Mhm.
food, and he's taking up space, you know.
Rehearsing in
like
the
he's using
ballroom.
everything as a
Right,
ballet
yeah,
bar.
Yeah.
And then I'll head to a quiet spot in the house to perform a ritual and use my cards to see what is going to happen next. I'm hoping to either divine where Rebecca's ring could be, or learn a little bit more about this demon.
Go ahead and roll. Go ahead and roll that move. Thinning of the veil. So with sensitivity.
Guys are not kind today.
Are they not?
Okay,
What'd you get?
it's
What'd you
a
get?
7 total.
Well, that's not too bad. A 7 is you may ask what is about to happen. I will answer truthfully, but not necessarily completely. What is about to happen? Jakob, well, you will flip the devil. Never a great sign in the tarot. You will flip the fool. An interesting combination of cards, to be sure. And you will flip the Hierophant, or the High Priest, which usually represents church. That will tell you that you interpret that to mean Jakob is going to go to Kilburn Abbey and get possessed by a demon. That's what's going to happen.
Just look at the Fool card, flip it over. My hand starts to just Christian and just wander off.
Indeed. I think we'll wrap the day phase there with everything kind of set up for the night in terms of the narrative, at least. Let's go ahead and click over to our phase tracker. Go to the desk. Playbook moves. What do we have going on? I don't know if Lady Florence, you want to call on the Royal Explorers Club for anything, but you have that option. Otherwise, do what?
I was gonna say it doesn't seem like there's anything like big. I've only got the one right now, so
Yeah, until you open it up somehow.
yeah.
Let's talk about Hargrave House.
Can I make a roll on my cosmic passage too?
Oh, is that a thing that happens on yours?
In dusk, yes.
Oh, yeah, please do.
With presence, that would be 8. So I'm bloodthirsty again.
You do take advantage on your next roll, though. Describe what aspect of the beast is helping you right now, or do it whenever you use the advantage, I guess. Also take an O for your hunt as well. Let's talk about the basement. The basement is cluttered with the belongings of long dead hunters who used to live in Hargrave House. What do you take from it? Add it to your personal quarters.
I think Victoria, in both consternation of trying to find Rebecca Solomon's ring, will go downstairs specifically looking and trying to excavate the debris to the corner of where I think her stuff might be based on the timeline of just hunters continuously filling the space. And I will look for any, I think maybe some holy water would be interesting, just like a vial or a bulb of it. And I'll put that in my personal quarters.
Love it.
There is a map of the lunar surface on a piece of parchment, but it's drawn in silver point, which is when your pencil is made from actual silver. And the drawing tarnishes with age. Written in the kind of the legend of the map, it says, I drew this myself with this pencil cased in actual lunar rock. So it is a silver point pencil with a casing that is supposedly made from lunar rock.
Very interesting. Yeah, put that in your personal quarters.
I think there is a very old sling, what the Greeks would call a kestros, which was designed to throw a stone dart way back when. And I think Dominic will grab that.
Nice. Like the thing that took down Goliath?
Yeah, but sharp.
Oh, I see. Interesting.
Like Grecian lawn jarts. Jesus.
Yeah.
That looks wicked.
Or didn't the Aztecs have a weapon kind of like that? Like it uses it's like a long kind of thing, and the leverage gives it like a lot
There's an
of
oddle.
an oddle. Yeah, there's lots of
You've got a spear here, and you've got
Yeah.
a second lever with a cup that extends your arm and leverage.
Ooh.
Deadly lacrosse.
Yeah.
Sell these things at the summer. Sorry.
What do you find, Lady Florence?
I don't know what it does. But I just remember it was down there, and it's like a pair of not cartoonishly large boxing gloves, but boxing gloves with demonic runes that are carved all over them. And I'm just really stoked on fighting right now, and I'm just like, oh yeah, there are those boxing gloves.
I like the idea of there was a previous hunter at Hargrave House who had such a thing. Good. All right. I love it. Let's go ahead and continue on with the phase. Well, what's everyone doing tonight? Well, first of all, I don't know if you want to try to answer another question, but you can. I don't know if you really have enough clues yet on any of them, but unless you want to maybe answer where's the source of the slugger's power, that's probably pretty easy to answer with the number of clues you have. It doesn't help you get closer to resolving it, but otherwise.
Absorption Night,
Does give us
and
the super
honey.
sweet move.
And we know that there's a bear at Bout Club, and they were worried about the slugger killing it. It absorbs the strength of large animals, or could be anything, but maybe it's a bear.
Wait, I'm sorry. You're saying that the source of the power is a bear, or that the slugger is a bear? I missed.
The source of the power is the slugger absorbing
Mm.
the strength of a bear.
This is entirely not a character joke, but you know the little honey bear squeeze things?
Yes.
That's his source of power. Like before a fight, he's like,
Well, they didn't
squeezes
have
one
a
and then
real
like,
bear last time, so they had to improvise, and that's why the honey.
So the question is, what is the source of the slugger's superhuman strength? The slugger's power cannot be taken away completely, but you can steal some of it for yourself. When we say what is the source, it could be like where you could interpret that to mean like where is the source, or what it actually the substance actually is. Your clues are the smell of honey, this Martian rock, and then absorption night written under the slugger's name on a matchup list. What do we
I feel like I like
what's the
Ben
theory
is.
here?
I like where Ben is leaning, but in that case, it would be like somehow he's channeling the power of a harnessed bear that perhaps he's keeping in the cellar behind
Oh yeah, there's
the
a fourth clue, the
tavern,
cellar.
right?
Mike, someone needs to click off that cell because we can't read it if you're on the cell. But the fourth clue is that there is that cellar that Lady Florence physically could not walk down into, right?
So theoretically, that makes some sense, but I don't know if I have enough clues to really get us there.
so wherever the honey comes from, the Shoreditch Slugger is filtering that through the skull of a bear, through a slab of porous Martian rock to get the essence. Like think about the strength of an individual insect, an individual bee, how powerful they are, and if you can distill that into something much more compact, ingestible, with a slightly honey odor. It spoils in sunlight. You can't. This is why you can't do the bout club during the day. It has to be during the dark.
I think so. He mentioned temples. He referred to his body as a temple. What if the crown and anchor is built on an old temple? Beneath it is this ritual space, and I watched a thing a couple of weeks ago about mad honey, which is honey harvested from bees on the edge of this plateau that have the flowers that they get the nectar from, has a hallucinogenic effect. And so when you eat the honey, you also get high. What if there's a corpse of a bear down there that is flowering, and the bees pollinate it, produce honey, and that gives him the strength when he consumes it, but the bear is almost used up. So now there's this new bear that will eventually be killed by a fighter, and then that will go to the temple and be the new source.
That's pretty wild, and I like it.
Yeah, that's great.
I imagine, like, I like to imagine that Hargrave House is having this conversation, like, while looking through books and being like, well, maybe it's this, or maybe it's that, or look, here's this interesting theory about pollinating flowers, and and then you eventually like land on this like wild theory. I'm curious why Lady Florence can't walk in. I feel like that's the key part of that clue.
Only one queen in the nest.
I mean, it might have
Or
something to do with the fact that she's a woman.
that maybe it was a temple to Priapus.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
We haven't explored it, but Lady Florence has presumably been to space.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It's kind of an out of character thing right now, but yeah.
Yes, but maybe there's something there where it's sort of like connected to if people have been to space, they can't enter, or something like that. That would kind of tie in the Mars rock.
Oh,
I don't know.
I've got an
that's
idea.
interesting. Yeah.
Let me throw in a thing because I had checked on my keys of sorry, let me get the phrase right here. My keys for the Vault of the Four Limbs. I checked the Shield of Korathor for this session, which is to block a doorway. Obviously, I didn't block this particular doorway, but I was picturing this blockade as involving sort of a vision of the door to the Cinnabar Temple, and I like where you're going with this idea that being sort of if you ventured off planet, you may no longer pass through this portal.
This is like a very earthly ritual, right? Because it's about like the cycle of life
Bears
on
and
Earth
bees and yeah.
and the rotting of like this particular atmosphere and like that type of thing. And so maybe like having that breath in your lungs like that, like I don't know if it's an earth goddess ritual, like that type of thing, that kind of pagan ritual. Maybe it just rejects things from other worlds being anywhere near it, or things that have like partaken in other worlds.
I mean, so Ben has an interesting note in the chat about Priapus, god of fertility, vegetables, nature, livestock, fruit, beekeeping, sex, genitals, and masculinity. Thematically, that's the big one for this threat, right?
Yeah.
It's in this bar where everyone's like, yay men and boo women, right? And then a woman who you were like physically like you walked into the bar and were like, nope. And then you tried to walk into the cellar and the cellar was like, nope. And I wonder if like, and so like the idea of it being like a literal temple to Priapus is historically interesting because lots of the subterranean parts of London were in fact old Roman structures, right? And so that makes a certain degree of sense. I do like the idea of the space connection though. Like this might be like where we start to like kind of pull in these like science fantasy ideas of, because like John Carter, that's got tons of like Roman, like like allusions to like Roman society and stuff, right, on Mars. So that's an interesting idea as well. It could be because of like you were particularly ill-suited to go down into the cellar and so you were prevented from doing so. In any case, I think it's probably a good, I like this basic theory. I think this theory is really, really, really cool. I'm not 100% sold on the Martian rock yet. It might be part of the next question, but for this, the smell of honey, the absorption night with the bear, and then the cellar, I think you got a +1 on this if you want to try it. I mean, I think it's pretty good.
Yeah, I like it. I like the kind of like the pure Priapus thing as well.
Yeah.
And then I think we can explore the space thing as just maybe a thread that we can pick up in the next.
In that scene where we're all like looking through books and trying to figure out, Lady Florence just goes on the like weirdest left turn, and Victoria's like, no, you're a woman.
I mean, it's just, yeah, because it's been like a really consistent theme. Like when Lady Florence like even participated in Bout Club, it was like this novelty. It was like, what are you doing? I think that's, the threat clearly wants to like explore those themes, right? So the Priapus thing makes a lot of sense. Ben, what do
I
you
just like
roll?
the idea that Lady Florence has been such a removed, like free-spirited, she can do whatever she wants with the power of the queen, that it didn't even occur to her that being a woman was a problem in this scenario.
Right, yeah. Lady Florence kind of wanders through London with quite a lot of like privilege, and like where she should be and what she should be doing, which I think is part of the explorer character for sure. What'd you get, Dominic?
That's 10.
10. Hey, there you go. Success. The opportunity is unlocked. You can now tap into it for yourself. So essentially, I just need someone to go to that cellar and grab some of the power, and you have the move. So, and it'll be easy because of the 10.
Dom would absolutely try and get an advantage before this fight tonight.
So that's at least the first part of your night phase sorted then. Lady Florence, what are you going to do tonight? Or what do you intend to do?
Probably go watch the fight, make some bets. Yeah. Sit back and enjoy the show. Stand back and enjoy the show.
Jakob, I think we know what you're doing tonight. Are you going to Kilburn Abbey? At the behest of your new friend?
Did I have an option?
Well, I mean,
yes, I'm going to Kilburn
yeah,
Abbey. No, I'm joking.
it's up to
I'm
you.
going to
Yeah.
Kilburn Abbey. Yes, drained and entranced by the talking ring
Yeah.
that was meant for someone else. I'm heading to Kilburn Abbey.
Ms. Balakwa, you know that Jakob is going to do this foolish thing. What are you going to do?
I have questions. Are you still wearing the ring? That would be very easily identifiable should Victoria see it.
Remember, my fingers are a little strange, and I often wear gloves.
It wears gloves, right? That's
Understood.
I understood that. I understood that to be the case. Like, you wear a glove over the ring, so we can't see it. Yeah.
Oh God, I'm torn because I really want to see Dominic fight a bear. Victoria and Sarah. That's both we want. That.
Go for it. I can end up possessed
Sarah
by a
still
demon,
gets
and you'll have
to.
to rescue me later.
Sarah gets to regardless.
Victoria will lean over to Jakob and say, "You should come with us tonight."
Oh, are we back at Hargrave House?
Well, on the desk, you're
Did we
assumed
all
to always
regroup?
go back to
You're kind
Hargrave
of, yeah.
House. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we don't discuss it. Everyone just says what they want to do, and then.
Oh, that's right.
and
Well,
you can have a
then if
revision.
I can't,
If you want to try and entice me, tell me more. But
we can start
I
the
would
night
like to
phase
go
that way.
see the fight.
We can start the
Yeah,
night
we
phase
can
with you trying to get Jakob to go with you. Yeah.
Yes, that is the plan.
Okay, sounds good. And then in that case, does anybody have a Janus mask they want to do?
I've been kind of leaning into it a little bit, so I could perhaps wrap it up.
Go ahead.
I guess having exited hang on, I'm forgetting the name of the bar, the Dog and Whistle pub. Having exited the Dog and Whistle, I'm meandering my way back to find a cab and kind of chatting to myself as much as to the ring, saying, I'm recounting what I read in the letter from my parents this morning that they wrote, dearest Jakob, as they always do. They, even though I'm an adult, they always say dearest. But dearest Jakob, we so miss your presence at the farm, especially at this time of year as we're shearing the sheep and gathering the wool, combing it out. So many extra hands are so useful in the tending to all these small tasks. Becca asked about you and had written, curious, apparently you're both in London now. Maybe you'll run into each other. Who knows? Definitely, we have heard about the social life in London and that you should be careful regarding sordid activities and houses of darkness and houses of ill repute. We did hear there's a great kebab place, the Buck and Ham Palace, that you might want to check out. We hope you're doing well. Come back and visit as often as you can. Sincerely, David and Rhiannon, your parents. And your parents is underlined a couple times.
Very good. Very good.
I think I also, though, have to take another condition because of that.
What is it?
Hang on a second. I got to get to the right part. It was Stoic or the other one, which is the one I'm taking.
Oh, this is the moss-covered gate. Either homesick or stoic.
Yeah, homesick. Yeah, homesick. So taking homesick, but that pushes me to a fourth condition. So do I now take another mask?
Yes. If that puts you to a fourth condition, you must mark another mask.
All right. Give me a second to click through that. Somebody else.
Yeah. Anybody else want to do a Janus mask?
I have mine to do, but I think I want to wait till the end of the night phase if that's all right.
Sounds good. And it looks like, Jakob, it looks like you also get another key to the five vaults of Tarthor for doing
Yes.
that thing, which is great. Okay. In that case, if there's no other Janus Mask, I will go ahead and introduce tonight's unseen. Tonight we are going to do well, since we're talking about houses of ill repute, let's just do it. Very last one on the top row. Madame Morvaine's Boy Tour. Powdered princelings and delightful demigods, all agape for your amusement. Madame Morvaine's famous guidebook is a walking tour of all the best male prostitutes in London. Ship Captain Jackson Flint Broadmoor has just come in for a 3-day port a call, the well-worn guidebook clutched beneath his arm. There are 4 of you here. Sarah, you can have prompt 1. Ben, you can have prompt 2. We'll say Brian can have prompt 3, and Mike, you can have prompt 4. Let's take a 5-minute break, and we'll come back into the night phase. Madame Morvaine's. Sarah, the first stop on the tour is Prince Louis, powdered, soft, covered in yards of satin and lace. He invites Captain Broadmoor into his boudoir. What distinctly feminine touches do we see in Prince Louis's room?
In addition to the extension of drapery and a canopy bed and gauzy interior, the edge of the wall is lined with dried flowers, as if he has saved and dried every flower that he has ever been given.
Let's start with Dominic. Are you going alone to the Temple of Priapus?
I mean, that was his intention. Whether he doesn't seem to be able to go anywhere alone today, so
Indeed. As you go down the stairs, you are able to go down. They go to a landing, where there's really nothing. It's just like a cellar. The real place you need to go is a busted up portion of the wall in the cellar, which unearths an ancient stairway. And that stairway goes down into the long buried Temple of Priapus. I want to paint the scene here, everyone, as Mr. Constantine enters this temple. I think there are attendants there. I think that there are people down there when you go down there. How is the temple, despite the fact that it's this like god of masculinity, how is the temple right now surprisingly feminine?
I think to a degree it's a lot of like there's a lot of cultural connotations that are just different now. What we think of as feminine maybe wasn't so much back when this temple was built. And so the fact that almost everything is covered with flowers and the scent of the delicate scent of floral fragrance hangs in the air feels very feminine, but Priapus didn't think so.
This is beneath the crown and anchor, right?
Very far beneath, yeah.
I think expanding on the historical Roman influences in which the relationships between men were or the expectations were quite different, that these attendants are also dressed in kind of like gauzy draped sort of robes and not necessarily what would be considered proper masculine attire in these Victorian times.
Not only are there these flowers all about, but the entire floor is carpeted in petals.
I'm going with the name of this pub, the Crown and Anchor, is about the decor down here. If you think of the anchor as a visual symbol of sort of a cleft in legs, there are crowns that have been bent into kind of a more feminine shape, and the walls are just decorated with these gilded anchors and deformed crowns that are meant to symbolize feminine reproduction.
Dominic, when you get down to the space, as you're looking around, you see these like attendants, these modern day attendants of this temple, all of them men, and the slugger's down there as well. He is standing inside the sort of skeletal frame of the bear, which is covered in flowers. And he himself is wearing a flower crown and nothing else. And he just smiles when he sees you. Lady Florence, I'm going to put you at Bout Club already, if that's okay. And when you arrive at Bout Club, Lady Florence, there is, at the front, there is a young man, who Brick is giving a hard time. Brick says, the last time, no, you cannot participate in Bout Club. Now get out of here. What do you do?
I mean, I've run into Brick a few times, right? So I probably, yeah, like overly casual. I'm just like, Brick, what's the issue here?
And Brick will say, no issue. And he looks at this young man. This young man gives him kind of like an annoyed look. And yeah, the young man just stomps off. Brick says,
Sure seems like an issue, something you need someone to take care of.
Brick says, Lady Florence, are you here to fight tonight?
No, they won't let me tonight. Said that I'm far too strong for tonight's lineup.
Ah, so here just to make sure that your betting scheme goes off then.
Oh, for sure. You've heard about that, eh? You've got any money down?
We consider your scheme to be something of a sullying effect on Bout Club. Bout Club is about men fighting men. It's about
Every man should
getting
have
in
skin in the
touch.
game, shouldn't they?
It's about getting in touch with the primal man without all of the softness of modern life to suppress their naturalistic urges. It's not about making money. But that's just my opinion.
It's fair. Every man has their opinion, and I have mine.
And I think that young man who kind of sees you like chatting up Brick, he kind of comes up to you and he says, I'm here with her. I'm going to help her collect the bets. What do you do?
And where did we meet again, young lad?
And Brick just looks at you and says, keep an eye on him, and then lets you both go down. He does not fight, he says, calls down to you as you head
And
into
yeah,
the
like
tube.
I'm kind of like muttering to this. I'm not even sure that I want you with me. What's your deal anyway?
He shakes your hand. He says, name's Francis Oakes.
Francis Oakes. Should that be familiar for some reason?
Nope, I guess not. But I'm certainly happy to help out. What's your name?
You don't already know me just by simply being in my presence.
You get down into Bout Club, and he just like totally ignores you at this point. He sees all the men standing around in a circle. There's a fight going on when you get down there, and Francis goes, oh shit, yeah, this is what I came here for, and like marches straight towards the crowd to like watch the fight. Meanwhile, Victoria and Jakob, you have not gone to Bout Club yet. You are still back at Hargrave House. What's going on here, Victoria?
Jakob, I need to be very clear with you. I saw something terrible in the cards. And you should not go to that abbey by yourself. I've seen terrible things. Let's just come along and we'll watch Dom dominate a bear.
Rub my gloved hands. The abbey. I don't recall saying anything about going to an abbey this evening.
No, of course not. I saw your intention through the cards and the spirits I work with. This is a very bad plan you have. And the reason I know of this plan is because the spirits told me that you would come to great harm. So come along, let's try to go someplace else.
The spirits talk to you through cards. Do they
Many ways the spirits talk to me.
Do they ever talk to you through jewelry?
Speaking of, the ring whispers to you, she is a liar. You can just go to Kilburn Abbey, or you can make the night move to resist the allure of the ring.
Let's try the night move.
What are you afraid is going to happen if you fail?
Well, the obvious thing, I go to the abbey, get possessed by a demon, and that's the last we hear from me.
It's worse than that. You're going to go to the abbey and you're going to cause a bunch of bloodshed and get framed for it.
Nice.
Roll with sensitivity, please.
Sensitivity.
Let me take a look at your conditions before you roll and see if you might be. No, you're okay. You have 3, but I don't think any of them really apply.
All right, I have a 9 on that roll.
A 9. Per the move, I have to remind myself how it works. On a 7-9, you do it or hold steady, but there's a complication or cost. Oh, I see. The complication or cost is that Ms. Balakwa learns right now that you're wearing the ring.
That sounds fantastic.
Okay.
I'm gonna lean in the ring. Quiet. I'm listening to her.
You have jewelry that speaks to you, Jakob. On your person. Now.
It doesn't. In fact, today is the
I reach and try and rip off his glove.
First time is today. It's never done this before.
Indeed, Ms. Balakwa, you will see Rabbi Solomon's ring on Jacob's weird fingers. Let's go over to Madame Morvain's, our next stop. Ben, Anthony, the Adonis, whose body is rubbed with golden powder. How do we know Anthony is dying of consumption?
Anthony spends a lot of time trying to perfect this look with the golden powder, because almost within half an hour of putting it on, he has sweat so much that it has run down him in rivulets and stained the ground that he walks on.
Mr. Constantine, the Shoreditch Slugger wants to share his power with you, and the temple attendants are happy to assist.
Yeah, Dominic will say something about being here to worship at the temple anyway.
Indeed. Then he will request you get on your knees for worship. And indeed, the two of you find yourselves in the flowers, the bed of flowers inside the skeleton laying in the rib cage of the bear, while the attendants anoint your bodies with sacred honey and say prayerful words and light braziers of incense. How are you feeling right now?
I think this is quite possibly one of the best nights he's ever had.
Indeed. Between the two of you, between this ritual act, who would you say is the more dominant of the two?
I think Dominic would try, but I think the Shoreditch Slugger still has a good deal of strength on him.
Please take an O for your hunt. And you are now the living vessel of the power for Hargrave House. Everyone can access that move, but you are the reason why. Lady Florence, what are you doing right now as you wait on the big fights coming up?
Oh, I'm really concerned about this guy. I think that I am going to actually tether myself to him. Just to make sure that like I have some, if I'm going to be responsible for him, like I've got some kind of like control or track over him. So as he's distracted, just kind of like tying some kind of string or whatever between our waists.
At a certain point, Jester calls for, do we have anyone here who wishes to be initiated into the secret rites of Bout Club? And you can see this kid, Francis Oakes, is like 100% like about to volunteer.
Yeah. I yank the like tether and I'm just like, no, you don't.
He's like, get off me. You don't even know who I am or what. Like, he's just trying to push you away.
And that's the problem.
And he kind of pulls away from you and begins like basically taking off his shirt in order to get into the ring, right? And takes off his coat, takes off his shirt, and he's very slight, and he's wearing chest bindings around his chest. And he says, I'm gonna fight tonight.
I will just untie the tether. Oh, you ended
Indeed,
up on mute.
he gets into the ring. Jester, gets him an opponent, and they begin duking it out. Meanwhile, Victoria, you might be just arriving at Bow Club at this time. What do you do?
Was I able to convince Jakob to come with
I
me
gather
or in the
Jakob's going as
confrontation of the
well. Yeah.
Okay.
Or I don't know. Jakob,
Uh,
are you going to end up going after all?
Yeah, I was enticed, and last time I got that peculiar rock that Lady
Yeah.
Florence passed on to me, so maybe there's more of these peculiar pieces of mineral. And maybe on the route, Miss Belacqua can talk to me about I don't know, jewelry that talks to you.
Oh, do we want that scene as you're traveling to Bout Club? I think that's good.
Seems worthwhile. Yeah.
All right, we'll
I'd
have the
like
scene in
a
the hansom cab then.
I'd like a little context because while Victoria had quite a bit of experience with Rebecca in regards to this ring, it was my own spirits lashing out and trying to get at her, specifically when we touched this ring. So I'm curious if I know anything about good, evil, otherwise. Did Rebecca talk to me about this at any point, or was it just a non-issue? We just didn't discuss it.
I mean, if you're asking about the ring has the ability to control demons. The ring is something of an object of attraction to them, and she uses it to manipulate them to get them to stop doing bad things, right? But
Okay.
if you don't know that, then it's just a thing that gets their attention.
Mhm. Well, that ring was sent to me by a dear friend, and I'm not quite sure why you have it. Are you in the habit of stealing one's Christmas gifts, perhaps? But for now, what you really do need to know is evil is attracted to it.
Evil is such a broad term. It seems like you speak of the spiritual realm more than the mortal physical realm. Do you mean evil in a secular sense or in a religious sense in this moment?
You see Victoria's body seize with just like massive annoyance, and there's actually little bits of black smoke curling off of her in response to you just trying to put it in a box right now. I'm trying to help you and you don't seem to be taking okay, so it's important that you understand that powerful things that move in the dark, whether they be good or bad, will come for you. Wearing that ring, I am only trying to help. I am not having a philosophical discussion about it.
That reference about the dark, I'd look out the window of the cab and see that the sun is below the horizon and the light is dimming. But isn't it true that the lamplighters, those young men with the little wicks, they're going about lighting lanterns in the darkness to guide us? Can't we control these forces of evil? And my fingers are like and it's like quadruple quotation marks instead of double. These forces of evil are something we can control if we just give our all, if we push a little farther.
Jakob, you haven't been at the house long, but you must know this city is overrun with things you could not possibly understand.
That seems to be true, yes.
All of those things are now coming for you. Just like to leave it on that ominous note.
That feels good.
I love the intimidation factor. So you're saying that because of the ring that speaks to me, the forces of darkness are attuned to me, a solicitor from Jan Pedregoch in Wales. Yes?
That is the first rational thing I've heard you say in this cab.
I think we will cut
How does
there.
one dispense? Oh, okay.
Back to the boy tour. Brian, Gianni, an Italian temple, olive-skinned and breathtaking. How do we know Gianni is having the time of his life?
So when your physique looks like Bernini and Michelangelo teamed up to sculpt you, and that's radiating through his like triple layer Victorian, sort of shirt, vest, jacket. He just points and he gets what he wants. He just gestures. He doesn't even need to speak, and people respond. They can kind of see the immaculate nature of this being within this woolen suit coat. And if anybody ever has the tenacity to sort of ask, like, how did you come to be like this? He says, I could have remained where I was born and been nothing, been an average being that everyone knows, or I could come here to London and become something quite unique.
Good. Mr. Constantine, I think that your scene with the Slugger was taking place earlier in the night, and now the two of you are here contemporaneously while Francis Oakes is fighting his first bout club match, and Lady Florence is there. Ms. Balakwa and Jacob are arriving directly, and Francis Oakes has just defeated his opponent, and everyone's like, kind of cheering and like, and Francis Oakes starts saying, "I want the Slugger, give me the Slugger." And there's like a murmur, and Jester is like, you gotta earn your shot at the Slugger, kid. And Francis just comes up to him and is like, no, I was led to believe that anybody who wants a match with the Slugger can have it if they're willing to step into the ring with the best. I want him out here. And the Slugger overhears this from the sort of little back kind of holding area. And he says, "I'm going to flatten that kid, but I have to take him up, don't I?"
Just don't kill him.
You understand now the power that flows through my fists, Dominic.
And think of
you
the
know
strength
that I
involved.
can't.
Think of how strong you'd be to control it, to own it fully.
We shall see. We shall see. And he steps over to the ring in honey-scented haze in order to take on this cocky young man, Francis Oakes, who clearly has a death wish. What are you doing right now, Lady Florence?
I am, if this is okay for me to do this, I would like to slyly hand off those boxing gloves that I pulled up from the basement to Francis Oakes. And I feel really bad for Dom for what might happen, but
Francis will take them, and he says, people don't normally wear gloves during bout club, but it is the Slugger. And he's putting them on, and he's like, my hands feel kind of funny in these. What's that all about?
it it just brings you up to the level of the slugger. Don't ask too many questions about it.
Let's paint the scene, everyone. Kind of what's really more just describing the scene. Francis fights the slugger. These gloves, which are apparently enchanted in some way, Francis loses, but Francis holds his own against the slugger because of the gloves. Everyone just describe a little bit of the fight.
The first tentative punches with these gloves that actually make contact with the slugger's like torso leave slightly reddened symbols as if they are imprinting onto his skin. But he doesn't seem to mind.
We talked about this, like there's like a silence to the fights previously, but I think this is different. Like both of these fighters, you've got the slugger is roaring like a bear, and Francis is just snarling like a demon, like something otherworldly. And it maybe even like there is often like that murmur of like bets and side conversations that's like under the level, the volume level of the fight, but I think it's completely hush as this is going on.
You know, that
Nice.
boxing move where you block with your forearms up, the forearms taking the blow, the gloves themselves, like the leather sort of splits in little puffs of cotton, whatever they put inside of it, wool, I don't know, is tattering out into the arena instead of the damage to the forearm.
And I think when the first real blow is landed on the slugger, and even that chatter goes quiet, even Francis is surprised and takes a moment and looks down at the glove before going back in.
The slugger wins, of course, and eventually gets the upper hand in the fight and lays Francis out. But it's marked as a victory among Bout Club that Francis was able to even survive the fight, right? And I think we'll just go ahead and go to the next part of the Madame Morvain's. Mike, Thomas, a rather plain young man, barely a man really, who's clean and able. How do we know Thomas is doing this out of desperation?
As the captain like approaches Thomas's place, we see Thomas kind of like shuffle four kids out the back of the apartment or the unit or whatever, and essentially like leashes them to a post. They're all like tied together and they're leashed to this post outside of the building.
Very good. Did not expect toddler leashes to play such a prominent role in the story today. Very good. The final fight of the night is not, the slugger is not the top of the card. The top of the card tonight is Mr. Constantine and Petunia, the bear. Petunia's name belies the fact that she is an incredibly large, ferocious bear. They've managed to get a grizzly bear in. She must have been very expensive to bring to London. And yeah, this is going to be quite a fight. Everyone is really on the edge of their, well, no one sits, but they're metaphorical, they're figurative seats here. I'm curious what you're doing on the sidelines, Ms. Balakwa and Jakob, since you're just sort of spectators at the moment.
I would have worn a tailored suit is my preference, and stick to the outskirts perhaps sipping on a draft of something, trying very hard to not engage with the manly men in this particular situation. I think that I am just observing.
I'm looking at this grizzly bear and thinking, how far did that bear come to get to this tunnel? And looking at its physique, kind of rubbing my own arms, noticing that where a sheepdog shows 4 claws but has that dew claw much farther up its limbs, the bear has all 5 claws forward. Just impressed by the physique and the distance traveled to be the one odd, extremely strong being in this part of London.
Before they bring the bear out and get everyone's attention, or get, before Francis can be distracted, basically, Francis will come up to you, Lady Florence, and give you the gloves back. And he says, "Thanks for your help. I don't know what happened in there, but I feel like it's at least partially, well, just thanks."
You've got the respect now, but do know that you shouldn't be doing this kind of thing without me.
He says, "You know what? You and I, we make a pretty good team."
I wouldn't go that far.
That feels like a good cut. Dom, if you are going to fight the bear, this is a night move to do that. Are you
Absolutely.
okay? Okay. What do you afraid is going to happen if you fail?
I'm going to get eaten by a bear
Yeah,
in front of all these people.
I think it's worse than that. The slugger and the priests of Priapus will use your body to fuel their magic.
I feel like that's actually kind of a compliment.
Well, yeah, it is. Yeah. Yeah. Let's have the roll. It's going to be vitality. Let's take a look at your no, I think you're good. If anything, your conditions would help. So let's go ahead and just have a vitality roll, see how it goes.
With advantage from my communing with the beast.
Oh yeah, absolutely. How is that channeling through you right now?
I think he is definitely channeling the same way with the slugger, the strength, the pure bestial, overwhelming strength with the added honey bear help.
Yeah, indeed. What'd you get?
That's 9 and 3 is 12.
12. Very good. I'll give you a clue as well before we go. Go ahead and describe the fight, though. How do you take the bear out?
I think it's not a clean fight for Dom. There is blood hitting the floor as claws slash. There's roars from the bear and from Dom, but all he needs is one opening, and he lashes forward, wraps his arms around the bear's neck, and kind of pile drives it to the ground. And there's just a crack, and the bear is still, and everything is silent. And then Dom just stands up and spreads his arms and kind of turns around so everyone can see, and he roars.
You get a clue as well. Something you notice as you're dancing around the improvised ring among the members of Bout Club. You'll notice, perhaps for the first time, all of the members of Bout Club have tattoos on their hands, on their necks, of either a sun, a moon, stars, or some combination thereof. That's your clue. That concludes the night phase as well. Let's roll over to the dawn. We're getting pretty close to time, so if anybody has to go, just go ahead and bail. It's fine. We'll catch you up next time. No threat was resolved, but we can do dawn questions. Everyone is getting credit for the first one because you did answer a capital Q question, so good job with that. Lady Florence, did you get an echo of the night? Yes, you did get an echo of the night, Lady Florence. You can go ahead and mark that one. And did you leverage your social status to gain the upper hand, Lady Florence?
I don't really think so.
Did you use your loyalty to Her Majesty to justify your brutal actions?
I did use that to sort of like hint at this like backstory between Lady Florence and Dom.
Oh, I'll take that. Yeah, I like it. Ms. Balakwa, did you experience an echo in the night? Flowers.
Well, Flowers was
Oh, it was
Dom's,
the other direction. It was
Ben's
Dom's, yeah.
echoes,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But I then took the gauziness from that same scene
Oh,
and then
right.
addressed all of the
Yeah,
attendants.
yeah, that's good. Did you counsel someone using your supernatural affinities as the basis for that advice? I would say you did. With
Told Jakob to not go in there.
Yeah. And you also performed a ritual, so you can absolutely take all those marks. Mr. Constantine, did you experience an echo in the night? The flowers.
Oh, the flowers, also the honey over
Yeah.
them, like the gold down the guy's body.
Yeah, that's a subtle one, but I like it. That's even better. Did you tell someone why their plans were poorly made?
Did not.
Did you try to go unnoticed in a public space?
He tried.
Oh yeah, tried. Yeah, you did try. I'll let you have it. You didn't say you have to succeed. Very good. Let's keep going. Brian, you can reassign your keys to the 5 vaults of Torthor as you wish. Do we have any open Janus Mass prompts?
Well, do you want to finish up my echoes in the night or no?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did we not? Oh, we didn't do you. I'm sorry.
Not doing me.
Let's go back.
So echo in the night. I was going for the like born elsewhere, came to London special.
Oh, I like it. Yeah, that's really good. Did you demonstrate your extreme naivete? I would say so.
What? I drank booze from a bartender that was unmarked. But if you disagree.
Well, yeah, I'm agreeing. You did demonstrate extreme naivete.
Oh, I misunderstood. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm totally agreeing.
Yeah. I was not.
I was also going to go. I was also going to go with the, just wandering to Kilburn Abbey because your ring told you to. Did you stick up for yourself while being bullied by another hunter?
Never got bullied.
Okay, very good. And let's keep going here. Okay, that's everybody, right? All right, Ms. Balakwa, what's your Janus Mask?
Let me read this off here. I must narrate a flashback to a time when, even in the womb, these dark spirits showed an interest in me. And as a child in my mother's womb, darkness was all I knew. And that didn't seem so unusual until you get to kind of that classic birth scene when my mother's water breaks. You see nothing but black ichor flood the bed as she's holding onto the headboard, trying, pushing, screaming. And as the doctor pulls my crying infant form from my mother, you can just see the black strewn down my face, and my eyes are screwed shut. But as a child, if I had opened them, they would have been completely black as well. It's like the fade out as you can see my mother lies dead in the bed with black veins radiating from her belly button.
I love it. Are there any more Janus masks that are unresolved?
I've got one. Mask of the Past. I am to narrate a flashback to a time that my heart was broken, and how did my earthly parents console me? that Becca that they mentioned in the letter, who has moved to London, Becca was kind of the childhood heart interest that, sort of the first, well, we'll find later, the first human that I fell in love with. But, another farm child similar to me, but she was a little older and moved to the city to seek her fortune. And I found out later that she was named for the Rebecca riots, the sort of uprising of Welsh farmers against oppressive taxation, and found it curious that she left our sort of bucolic existence to go gain more money in a highly urban area. It seemed contrasting with a Welsh movement that shared her name. And my parents tried to console me, saying, sort of that there are many other sheep in the field kind of thing, like, you'll find your flock. And that was where I was like, oh, maybe I should actually be a member of the clergy. Maybe these earthly travails are not my thing. I'm meant for something different.
Very good. I think that just leaves us with stars and wishes. So whoever wants to do their stars and wishes, go ahead.
I'll go first. Stars for the continuing Lady Florence and Dominic intention. Huge, just really fun to watch you guys roleplay that out. Absolutely. Lady Florence just going along with her privileged ignorance and assumptions, and Dominic just salty as fuck the entire time. It's just pitch perfect, and I love it. As always, Brian, your Jakob is infuriatingly naive, and I actually found myself as a player getting irritated with you outside of the game, so the bleed there was a little strange, but also really fun. I loved the solution we came up to in this particular. The answer to the question was so.
Both were quite good.
Yeah, it fit really nicely, but it also just gave us a lot of narrative to work with. So yeah, huge star for that as well. Additional star for there was a lot of innuendo that, Ben, you were throwing down with the initial conversation with the slugger in the bar. They're like, oh, I thought you would have liked it harder than that. And all of it just kept rolling off your tongue. Mwah. Delightful. Wishes. I have lots of wishes. I'm looking forward to doing more masks because I feel like the dice today were truly horrible to me, and that's good because now I'm getting a chance to express my narrative in a way that I don't think that the last couple of sessions got to. But I'm also excited to figure out kind of what is going to come about with the demon and the ring, and there's a lot of like loose ends out there, narratively speaking. So, and Jakob spoke to Christian not at all this episode, so maybe there's a little bit of a wish, and or maybe they're on the outs for some reason. Anyway, it was a great session. I think that's that.
I also really enjoyed our answering of questions. Everything seemed to fit together nicely, and I loved the way that it was incorporated, and look forward to seeing more of this child vampire who truly is a child this time. I really enjoyed, the interactions with Lady Florence, and I guess a wish. We have to. I think we should discuss what is going on there and what kind of history is there with the Constantines. I also liked the beginning of laying a seed of doubt about Dom's family's intention. I really enjoyed the scene between Jakob and Victoria with regards to the ring. That was perfect. Great scenes all around. I really enjoy getting to. For some reason, Dom is so much hornier than my undeniable was. I'm not sure why it worked out that way, but it's a lot of fun, and I'm happy that we're leaning into that in cheeky ways.
Yeah, I'll go next. I had a lot of fun, and I agree about the answer questions. Those were both really, really good. The solutions were good, and I particularly love the Roman numeral 3 representing like 3 parents making the vampire. I thought that was really, really clever. And then the whole thing with the Priapus temple was like just a stroke of genius, like because it just tied in like it was almost like perfect, like the honey, the masculinity, the like it all just kind of like really, really fit super well into the themes of the threat as well. This threat, which is was written by Sarah Bowling, is like it really, really like knows what it wants to be doing in terms of like the themes, right? Like the fact that like it's this very like boys club kind of thing. It has it very much like plays with like the movie Fight Club and like kind of makes and kind of Fight Clubs the between, which is kind of fun, like just in the like some of the moments, the way some things you see in the background and stuff. There's lots of cool characters, like the brother who's mourning his other brother who got killed, the young trans kid like who wants to do the fights, like all that stuff is really, really fun, and it just all comes through like in a super cool way. And so I'm really loving that. It's just so thematically strong and intriguing. I also really enjoy the I'm also really enjoying this sort of this dynamic between the Slugger and Dom. I think is super interesting. I think it's really interesting that Dominic has tried to hook up with like basically a character in every threat at this point, which is pretty great, including Rory Horsford, the barman, who just put him to work when they had a misunderstanding about what was going on there. So I know, I just kind of love all that. I feel like giving Dom an O on the hunt for bottoming with the Slugger was a stroke of genius on my part, if I do say so myself. And loving Jakob's energy. It's really cool. I think this is the way The Martian is supposed to go, right? Like, I mean, I wrote it, and so I think, yes, it is how it's supposed to go. Like, it's meant to have this like extreme naivete punctuated with these like moments of like, what the fuck, there's lightning coming out of the sky, or like like it's punctuated with these big like power moments, until certain switches get flipped, particularly the one involving the Venusian overlord, and then it gets really real at that point for the Martian. So yeah, I'm loving all that. And I think Ms. Balakwa, I really loved role playing that scene between you and the rabbi. I thought that was a lot of fun. Just a very, very good role play moment. Just quite enjoyable. And great stuff all around.
So star to Sarah and Victoria for getting the first mask of the past and literally having that character be born in front of us. The depth of that character, because I think that starts adding that richness and those extra layers to Victoria that we've kind of seen, but now we've got things to sort of like grab onto with her. And then to Brian for like continuing to push Jakob. It feels like this, like, I mean, jumping off what Jason said, that the Martian, like, as you hit these like big triggers, it's going to be very momentous. So just like driving that momentum forward on the reveals of Jakob, as well as I think now having another member of Hargrave House aware of his potential state and that type of thing, I think is really valuable as well for the storytelling. And of course, a big star to Ben this week for, man, just a lot of stuff. As we were kind of like fumbling through, obviously that like second question and just like dropping that little tidbit in there that pulled everything together. And then, the whole interactions with the Slugger were fantastic. And Jason, as like everything's getting much more complicated, like we've got 3 things going here, all the characters at different points of their like masks, and Like it's pretty wild. There's a lot of stuff going on. Like your ability to just kind of like tie it together, like manage that spotlight really efficiently is as always very, very impressive. I think my wishes are that whatever curse is on me and hearing about the talking ring would end. And because that sounds like it's good stuff, and I haven't gotten to pay attention to any of it because of stuff going on this side. And yeah, I mean, now that I have the Royal Explorers Club, I have more marks of that. I'm gonna see what kind of weird ways I can utilize that, and that should be fun.
What? God, lots of things, but to not repeat, or try to not repeat. Sarah's birth sequence was graphic in just the right way. A lot of good depths of that character's previously described sort of emanations of spirituality. It might have been the first thing that Mike said today, but the magnets that can't glom together, I feel like that was like sort of set a tone, or whether it was deliberate or not, I don't know, but it sort of set a tone for how you were trailing Dom through so much of this, like never quite coming into contact, but always sort of nearby. Okay, Moss. Oh, Ben, you talked about our little found family, and that made me realize that that's kind of the essence of how Jason scripted the Between, that this is a found family coming together and they go do things. And that left me with a peculiar wish that would be nearly impossible to play out. It would take hours and hours of time. But like, if we had these same characters, but we were each playing a different character, how would this run out? Like if I was playing Dominic or playing Lady Belacco, whatever, like if every one of us was to rotate roles, how would we behave differently?
Oh, if you were to rotate
that makes
characters.
Yeah, and I'm not saying we should. Like
I would
imagine
be
running
just
the
as
entire
horny as
campaign.
Dominic, just for the
Huh?
record.
Say it again.
I would be just as horny as Dominic, just for the
Okay,
record.
yeah. Just that idea of like if you ran the entire campaign, same characters but different players playing the characters, what would happen?
Almost like troop style play. Yeah.
Yeah.
There are games that do that, right? I mean, that is a thing that where you like have a common group of characters and everyone just plays them. They're usually one shots though. They're rarely like campaign length games, but yeah, that's an interesting idea. I think maybe what might be an interesting variation of that idea is if you make up all of the hunters, like you do every playbook, and then you just decide on any given session who's active that session. Like, you know, this is all of Hargrave House, and today we have the Unquiet and the Legacy and the Undeniable or whatever. That could be kind of fun.
That's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Fabulous. Any other stars or wishes?
One more bonus star again for the snake that could have been, because Jason, it's just every time I think of snakes.
I had fun with that. There's a part of me that kind of wished you were going to like actually try to do a ritual to stop it, but I'm glad you didn't, because I also wanted to see your first Janus Mask as well. So that's my one wish. I really hope we get to see more Janus Mask. You can do a Janus Mask. You don't have to wait on a miss. You can bump a 7 to 9 up to a 10, right?
Sure.
Or a 10 to a 12. So that's, that's a thing to be mindful of. But yeah.
Same wish, same page.
My other wish, I think, is I really this is the first scene this is the first session we didn't see Admiral Flag. And there's kind of a behind the scenes reason for that. But I will tell you that the Shoreditch Slugger is one of the threats that's on the timer. And you're running out of time to get this one sorted. So I'm dropping lots of hints about what's going on with Admiral Flag and the Slugger if you don't get it sorted out. So just something to be mindful of.
If I, as a player, was mindful of that and then chose the other, because I want to see that Slugger thing happen
that's
long
up to
term.
y'all. That's totally
maybe
up to you guys, but
yeah.
But at a certain point, it's going to be a problem for Hargrave House and a big benefit to Admiral Flag. So just know that. And are there any other stars and wishes? No. Okay. Well, in that case, I'm going to wave goodbye to anybody watching the video.